There's practitioners who dive into research. There's some docs that are very, very much suited to be associates or independent contractors. There's some docs that are great clinic directors. And there's some docs that like to do a little bit of everything or have done a little bit of everything. It starts with knowing who you are, what you want, and being open to evolving as your business and as you change through the years as well.
Wow. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, as always, Dr. Josh Satterlee, and I'm joined today by the amazing Dr. Melissa Longo. Melissa, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Josh?
I'm great. And for those listeners wondering who Melissa is and what she does, a brief synopsis. She's an amazing chiropractor. She's up north of Toronto, which to me seems north of Toronto is like the North Pole to us Americans, but I'm sure that you're like, no, it's not that deep. But yeah, you volunteered to hop on and talk about trust and healthcare and building the perfect practice with me. So I want to jump into those things.
Happy to be here.
Do we need to go into your background, or can we just go forward?
I'm happy to share whatever questions you have for me. Wherever you want to start, I'm good.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I sent out the message to you. I said, let's talk about trust in healthcare. And I think a lot of times that's, do patients trust their provider? Do they trust the treatments? They trust diagnosis and all those things. And I think that's important. But through your podcast and all the things you've done, I think one thing you have identified that I'd love to talk about is helping people trust their own decisions in healthcare, whether they're a clinic owner or even like making decisions about patient care. But I see you nodding your head. That's a common area where I think people we're humans. It's tough,
Yeah, I think that really, if we want to look at breaking it down, I was just riding my bike moments before we started chatting, and I was thinking about this conversation. I think to get people in your practices to trust what you say, it really starts with you trusting, as you said, yourself and knowing what you offer and who you are and what kind of practice you want. And then the second piece of it is communicating it clearly. So, that comes into your brand, how you show up in your practice, and obviously telling them what to expect and being confident in sharing with them, this is not the right place for you. You should actually go see Dr. So-and-so, or you should go see an osteo or massage, or maybe you need to go to ER, whatever it is. But that confidence comes from first and foremost knowing yourself and knowing the kind of practice that you want, and then really stepping into it and owning it. And I'm saying that from 22 years of practice experience. I certainly wasn't saying that 5 years in. It's a lifelong journey getting to know who you are in practice and evolving with your practice and your expertise and your skills. But I think it definitely, as you said, it starts there.
Can you tell us a little bit? I know you've hosted some podcasts, and like you said, you've been in practice 22 years, but what are some difficult decisions along the way that you had to make and trust yourself? Because oftentimes, if we don't trust ourselves enough, we just get into the indecision game, right? We're like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just not going to do anything, which is kind of a decision, but it's not necessarily the one we want. But along the path of 22 years of practice, have there been some tough decisions?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the toughest one would likely have been redesigning my business. So I'm currently, my practice runs out of about 500 square feet. I have an amazing team of people who support my business, but I don't have a team that works in-house here with me. I don't have a front desk. And it's a beautiful space. It's indoor, outdoor. I am north of Toronto, but like most parts of Canada, it's not winter here all year round.
You guys get like a month and a half of sunshine, right?
Yeah, we get right now for the couple of months we've got here now, the doors are open. It's a really great vibe. It's a really great culture and community here. But getting to this point was not easy in that, 12 years ago, I went through a divorce at that time. My former husband was also a chiropractor. So we had a family practice. And when our marriage changed, we had to redesign our businesses. And we were still actually, believe it or not, business partners for a couple of years, and that we shared our location. We shared all the physical assets, the tables. And I was in there with my team and he was in there with his team, different hours. And we were both available to be with our kids at different times. But then after a few years, I realized this is not what I want. I was stressed. I was still struggling. I was trying to parent. And it just intuitively wasn't sitting well with me. And I'm like, something's got to change. And so that's when I relocated to this home-based type of practice. And that changed everything. So it was easy in that I'm like, something's got to give. I need to do more. I love being a chiropractor. I love talking to people about health and healing. I'm really generally quite comfortable communicating with people. So how could I do more of that and be a mom, a clinician, and not manage other people and manage other properties? So that was a hard decision, but definitely it opened me up to so many other things. That's the biggest one. I can definitely think of examples where I wasn't true to myself in communications in my practice. And, that's things you learn the hard way and then redesign, your structure for sure.
Let's go back to that before you and your former husband split. sometimes there's a picture of like, oh, as I'm in practice longer, I think some people and I've had this feeling, I must get bigger, right? I must grow how many people we see, how many providers we have. That means we have to have more space. That means we got to move these walls. That means we need to order more tables. We got to take over the space next to us, blah, 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 blah. And that is kind of a default setting of quote unquote growth, right? It's just physically getting bigger. Schedule has more lists, your patient visits go from 50 to 100 to 250, and we think, oh, we're great.
Yeah.
You didn't go that way. In fact, you went the other way. When you talk about like realizing what was your, what you need to do, how did you come to the conclusion that, hey, contracting both physical space, right, down to 500 square feet, and also time, it sounds like your time schedule contracted, that is the right decision and not just avoiding? You know what I mean? Like one is a confident choice and the other one is, I don't want to deal with this.
That's an interesting question. And if I were to think back, I think that I definitely had support around me at the time, like mentorship, friends, colleagues who were like, so that objectivity of people seeing that I was going, okay, here's who I really am. Here's what I want to do. I was in a really great mastermind at that time. I did have a business mentor. My girlfriends, my chiropractic colleagues were really supportive. So I think that objectivity, sometimes people see things that you don't see and they can all call you out on your good things your skills.
I'll tell you this. One time, we had spent a year going through a bunch of business changes. Maybe it was almost 18 months. And in the time, I don't know if you've had these seasons of business, but there's seasons when it seems like you're just pouring money out. Like we need to update the tables and you need this and update the carpet and the computers are old. And it just happened in this like year and a half period where every time we had extra money in the practice, never went to profit, meaning I never took it home. Right. And it just was grinding on me. So I decide, how do people make money in chiropractic? Oh, I'm going to do a bunch of PI cases. I had a bunch of patients actually who are attorneys that were like, if you ever want to do PI, let me know. And so one day I go home and I tell my wife, I'm like, hey, I think we're going to switch. We're going to go after a lot of PI cases. I got a bunch of lunches scheduled with attorneys and blah, blah, blah. And she paused for a second and looked at me and she said, you're going to hate that. You're absolutely going to hate that. And I was like, no. We need to make the money and this and that. She's like, and she was, obviously money wasn't flowing into her house either. So it wasn't, but she's like, no, we don't need the money that bad. You're going to hate it. You're going to be miserable to be around. Do not do that. Yeah. And so being the genius that I was, I went ahead and had those meetings and got the patients. And 6 months later, guess what happened? I was completely miserable. The patients, the attorneys weren't happy. The patients weren't happy. I wasn't happy because I was like, we're not going to change the way we do things. We're going to get ready to complete exam. We're going to work them up as we work up an athlete.
Yeah.
And the attorneys are like, dude, this is not how we work. We want as fast as possible, as many visits in a week. And I need the notes like right now. And I'm like, and it was just such a lesson to me that she knew that. She smelled it on me from day one. And it sounds like you're saying when you made that change, when you were clear about it, I'm sure your best of friends said, I don't think you're going to want that actually. Or yes, absolutely, you should pursue that. We've all actually been asking you to pursue that for 2 years.
Yeah. And I think there was definitely a point of me at that time that I was like, something's got to give here because I was running hard, right? And I was chasing that whole, more is better. And I thought, what do I need more of? And I'm like, what I want more of is time with my kids. I'm the kind of parent that I wanted to be present in my son's lives and I wanted to be the one cooking them dinners. And for me, that's what I defined for myself as successful as a parent, as a mother. So that was I think if docs and practitioners really get clear on like who they are and what they want, really, then the decisions start to get a little bit easier. If my decision at that point in time was like, I really want to be more present with my kids, which means I want to have more, then how do I free up more time? How do I simplify things? And that was the core of it. So, there was and then I think when you get clear on stuff, then things start to show up. Like this property that I bought, it showed up within a couple of weeks. And I first saw it, I was like, I don't know if I want to live there. And then the more it settled in, I just intuitively, we all have that intuition, that voice inside us, the gut feeling, whatever you want to call it, that tells us sometimes which direction to go. And I think it's generally wiser than we give it credit. So there was part of that at that point in time.
Imagine a practice where patient engagement is seamless and unified. With TrustDrivenCare, connect with patients across text, email, social media, and Google Business Chat, all on autopilot. Empower your team to step in effortlessly and engage in real time from anywhere. Say goodbye to multiple software and hello to a simplified practice and life. TrustDrivenCare is the all-in-one solution to save time, boost revenue, and build patient loyalty. Book your demo today and watch your schedule start to fill up. Now, back to the show.
So 22 years in practice, many life experiences. Let's talk again about the word trust, because our company is called TrustDrivenCare. We're all about that, but the trust starts from inside you, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of us hear that intuition. A lot of us have the idea of, hey, I should do this, or hey, why am I being pulled to this? But we don't trust it enough, or we ignore it, or we go, hey, that's frivolous, right? Oh, taking that much time off to be with your kids is frivolous, Melissa. You shouldn't do that, right? Like maybe that's baggage we're holding over from the way we were raised or whatever. How have you learned to trust that voice and maybe challenge it to know, like, yes, this is the right decision, not just for now, but actually for a long time? Have you developed any skills?
Comes in in the results.
Okay.
Right? Like you make one choice, and that's, people say, oh, you're really fearless. I'm like, no, I'm just better at failure. Like, because I just trust that I'm going to catch myself if something happens. But you also, typically things move forward. Like if you rely on those things and you get the validation, like I moved my practice into this space, which freed up my time, which meant I often had more time to do other things. So then so you're taking a risk and getting the validation, like, oh, this actually works. This is making my life better. Okay. Then the next time you get presented with a choice, you can rely, like it's a strength that you start to build. If you never listen to it, then you don't know. But if you start to listen to yourself and listen to your instincts and you make choices that align with them, they're going to bring you somewhere, right? And so then you get proof, you get validation, if that makes sense. And then
I recently heard
it just kept opening things up.
I want to talk about that. Like it's a very common statement that I'll hear from especially experienced providers and just experienced business people is opportunities kept popping up or whatever, right? But I think that, those opportunities always are the results of, you could say, playing or just asking or putting it out there, communicating it. Mm-hmm. So yesterday I just happened to be talking to somebody and they said, fear is a direction. And they said, when you're pointing at something and you're scared, oftentimes that's the right thing. Because if you're not scared, it's not worthy of your time, effort, and, you. It's not worthy of you. And I remember reading, you ever read any books by Brene Brown? She's like,
yeah.
One of the things I just picked up from her that I thought was so good, that you said people describe you as fearless, right? And you're like, no, I just go after it. She said, courage doesn't exist unless there's fear. Like if I go, hey, Melissa, can you walk half a mile? You'd be like, of course, there's no fear. But I go, hey, can you hike up Mount Everest? It's like, oh, well, there's some fear there. And therefore to do it would take courage, right?
Yeah.
And she was saying she talked to even like soldiers and stuff and special forces guys. And they're like, if asked when were you most courageous, it always also when you were the most fearful, right?
Yeah.
But I think one thing you learn with experience that you're demonstrating is pursuing things even in the face of fear results in that's what I think experience brings you, is the other side of that, getting over that fear of contracting your office, getting over the fear of divorce. I'm sure that there were some scary times there, right? And getting to the other side is something that only experience sometimes shows you. So my point then to anyone listening.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, your friends describe you as fearless, and it looks to me like you've had a lot of great experiences now when you've decided, it's not that there was no fear. There might have been great fear, but most is the kind of person that goes, okay, but it's not going to stop me. It's not like you don't experience it, but you're still willing to go forward.
Yeah, it's like, again, it's that validation. There's two things that come to mind there. One is that it gets easier with time. So the more you do, it's like 20 years in practice. So someone's in here this morning and she had vertigo, and I can say with more confidence, because I've adjusted so many people, that, okay, this is the connection and these are probably what you're going to experience. And this is like based on my clinical findings, right? So that comes with life too. Like whether you're in practice or in decisions you're trying to make and how to exercise a new adventure in your business or to try it, to go hike a mountain, whatever it's going to be. That's the beauty of experience. And I think that working with people or having people around you at all different stages of practice life is so valuable because you can rely on the experience, right? The good and the bad. You said the seasons of like, my money's going out, but you realize it's going to come back. Like it's a marathon of life, not just a sprint. But I really, really think, and I always like to stress with people, like we're not all supposed to be the same. So, the world would be very, very boring if we were all the same, built the same. There's leaders and there's followers. There's different personality types. There's introverts, extroverts. There's, we're supposed to be different. And so just because you can start a podcast here and do it and you're confident doing it doesn't mean that everyone should do a podcast. Right? Like, you need to know your skills. You need to know that you could be listening to us chat right now as a listener, be like, oh, that sounds terrifying. Well, then maybe you shouldn't do it. That's okay. You have your own skills. So really, I mean, getting to know your own personality and knowing who you are, and then don't get me wrong, that's a lifelong journey, but whether you do, reading books or listening to podcasts or self-evaluations or retreats or coaches, mentors, pastors, whoever it is going to be for you, really spend time getting to know yourself and what your skills are, and then build a business that connects with who you are. To me, that's how you start to build a trustworthy business, because you can actually trust yourself and how you're showing up. Your brand is going to be consistent. People are going to know and expect you to be the same person you are that you're portraying in your videos or on social media.
Yeah.
And the results are there too. And not to mention, when you do that, you actually feel like yourself. There's so many people that you see and they're carrying a facade or they're wearing a mask. And you're like, that's got to be exhausting. But also, you're not being congruent. So how do you pretend to be someone that you're not in your business and your relationships?
Yeah.
It's not congruent. It's exhausting.
Yeah. That's so amazing. Like, I've had that experience where, you find a provider or something for some service and you look on their website and blah, blah, and it tells you all this stuff. And then you go in and I'm like, something's wrong here. They could be an expert in medicine, but I'm like, the disconnect between what I saw on the website and the person in front of me is so great that I worry that there's a disconnect between what I need as medicine and what you can provide. Like I go to a pulmonologist for stupid reason, but
yeah,
I always think about them. Like, I'm like, there's so much disconnect here that I'm almost uncomfortable in that office, and I find myself questioning a lot of decisions. But it's all that authenticity you're saying, like. And I think that's that trustworthiness, whether it's like dating somebody and decide like something's wrong here, this is not good.
Yeah.
Or whether it's a service provider or a vendor, maybe it's somebody that you're like, God, when push comes to shove, I just don't think you're going to provide what you say you're going to provide. That sucks. And that's that trust piece that I love discussing and how that occurs. So you've gone through a lot of this and experienced it. Let's move a little bit to you trust. Let's say somebody's listening, they trust that intuition and decide, hey, I'm going to pursue a certain type of practice. For you, that was a smaller space, indoor, outdoor, looks like bright colors, bright people. I'm going to guess come to your practice.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun space here. Yeah.
Yeah. As people move forward to build their version of their perfect practice along the way, and with your podcast and all your mentoring and your masterminds, what do you think are some really good pathways or questions to ask yourself to know, is this truly my perfect practice?
I think it's first of all, like, well, what do you want? Like, and it's the easiest and hardest question. Like, what do you actually want in your family life, in your relationships, in your business, in your finances? And, it's a starting point, because then if you really want to manage a team of people and build a multidisciplinary practice, and amazing, go for it. Then this is how to do it. This is the boutique or the strategy, the structure to do it. But if in your heart right now in this, I think it's also important to look at your business in seasons, right? We talked about the seasons of, like, sometimes there's all these pairs and stuff, but sometimes there's seasons of, if you're having a young family, then your growth or opportunities then may be different than they're going to be when the kids are not living with you anymore. I'm at 50 right now. So my boys are 18 and 22. The things that I'm doing now, I would not have never been doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because my time was different. So looking at it from that perspective, but I do think asking yourself what you want, like, now, and then how do you go about it, but really getting clear on what success means to you. Because as you said earlier, is, we fall into this trap, and society does this in so many ways, of more is better. And I know a lot of people, and I've interviewed hundreds of people on my shows, and you probably know this from podcasting too. Sometimes the conversations you have before and after are much more powerful, because people are real and they're telling you, like, I've had $1 million practice owners, $1 billion practice owners on my show, and then they see me with my small space and they would be like, I want to do what you're doing. How do I do that? Where you realize that they've got this great business, but their stress level is out the door, or, their health is not where they want it to be, or they're really struggling with their relationship with their kids. And so there's going to be a compromise somewhere, unless you get really, really clear on who you are and what you want. And then you actually take the steps to create that. So it's easy and it's hard. Like, it was hard for me to change my business model 12 years ago. But I've never looked back because, again, my sons are men now and I love who they are. I love hanging out with them. We have a super tight relationship because that was what was really important to me as a mother and as a woman. You know, in business, I've opened doors and been able to, I've had a television show, I've done podcasting, I've done business coaching.
Oh my gosh.
Those things have opened doors to me because I took a risk and I was able to go, this is who I am, this is what I want.
Yeah.
So asking yourself those hard questions and then having the courage and the support around you to follow, it makes a massive difference.
I think anybody listening, here would be my recipe. And Melissa, tell me what you think of this. Number one, find those 2, 3, 4, no more than 5 people who absolutely love you and love you. They truly know you. And also they will not let you BS them. You know, I mean, it might be your Uncle Joe. It might be a business partner. It might be a pastor from church or something, but somebody that's like, hey, I'm going to give it to you straight because I love you that much. Find those people. And then ask them like, hey, what do you think I do really well? And what do you think really lights me up business wise? Right. And they might say, so for example, like everybody talks about the Disney experience, right?
Yeah.
I remember talking to a friend of mine and he's like, God, that just sounds like a mess to me. And I was like, what? He's like, I want the most simple thing. I want it to be like, I want to be able to condense my entire business to one sheet of paper. To me, that's low stress. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I want to provide an amazing experience. He goes, nah, dude, you provide an amazing experience. You got to buy the right kind of toilet paper. I don't care what kind of toilet paper I buy. He's like, you need to buy the 2-ply expensive stuff. He's like, you got to buy the Windex that smells nice. I don't have to. He's like, I have a slick business, you know? He's like, you need to vacuum every night. I don't have to. And he's like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, it's totally different. I never, like, had he not shown me such a stark difference, I would have never believed it. But anyway, so find these people and then start at the most basic 2 questions that I think are really important to ask yourself. First one is, where do you want to live? Like, I know sometimes we just fall into this, but like my hometown is kind of dumpy. I mean, it's in Southern California. It's north of LA by about an hour. And even when I drive back today, there are all these unfinished sections and plots that just were like, and it's
not inspiring to you.
No. So now I live outside of Las Vegas. And one of the things I love is when they start building here, they finish it.
Right.
And there's not half-built places where people gave up. And for me, that's amazing. And Vegas is constant progress, right? Constant people turning over. And although it doesn't have the vegetation of probably like where you live or Lake Tahoe, where my family goes to vacation, I love how active and upbeat the city is. I love walking every morning in the fall and spring. But there's a point in the summer where I ask myself every year, why do we move here?
Right.
Why do we move here? So I think that's certainly something to consider, especially when you get to that season of life. If you're somebody who's going to have kids, living near your family is a bigger deal than people. Nobody ever told me that that's going to become a bigger deal. My family, my wife's family moved nearby in 2021, and I don't know how we did kid care before that with them. I mean, we use their help so often for little things that it's amazing. But nobody ever talked me through that and said like, hey, that's going to become an important thing. Now, to you, your boys, they don't need kid care. I mean, hell, they can pick you up and carry you to the mall now, right? Like,
yeah, they sure can.
So it's not as important. So you can then decide where do I want to live from this point forward, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think people consider that enough in the professional sense. And then like as a professional, you know, like you're 2 hours from Toronto, asking yourself, do you want to live in a big city where you're a small fish, or move 2 hours and say, hey, like even with a 500 square foot office, I'm sure you're super well known in the medical community, you know, the healthcare community, because you're one of fewer people. So I think asking people asking themselves, where do you want to live? And then trusting that answer and making sure that if you're going to, like, for example, if you're going to get married, do they want to live in the same type of place? Like they love rural and you love city, or vice versa, you know?
Yeah,
I just think even those basic questions.
One.
Yeah,
I would agree with you. It's not just who you
set up in school.
Yeah, it's like what kind of life do you want? I mean, and I say this to my sons. I'm like, guys, if you still want to go like to Raptors games and you want to play golf and you want to have your own car, and like you're going to have to make X amount of dollars. If you don't care about that lifestyle, then you don't need to make as much money, right? And so really getting clear as a practitioner, as a family. Like, what do you want? And lifestyle wise, like I'm not driven by some of those things. I'm driven by nice experiences. And don't get me wrong, we have a great life, but I'm not driven by a fancy car. I don't need to drive a fancy car because I don't really care about cars. Right. So, you know, there's some pieces of my life that I'm like, I don't need the money to pay for that because I really don't care. I would rather have the or travel or do this or do that. So even when it comes to practice space, all I focus on here is chiropractic and I do workshops and health education kind of stuff, but I refer to other practitioners as much as I want to. I don't need to have them in my space because I personally, as Melissa, don't want the lifestyle of having to manage them. Some docs are great at that. So it's knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and then knowing where you want to live and what kind of lifestyle you want. You put those three together and you really can start to really develop a life. But I also think, Josh, that it's really important to keep asking yourself, checking in. I tell my clients, every quarter we need to be saying, what are your goals? But like, what do you really want now? And we set goals, not just for your business. It's like, what do you want for your family for the next 3 months? What do you want for your health for the next 3 months? And be asking yourself and staying engaged and curious in your life and paying attention, because you don't just set your goals for your business once and then you're done. Like, you have to keep evaluating. You might have had a new baby, or now you.
And things change. Yeah. I have a friend, she's an attorney, she's an amazing attorney. She had a baby. Baby, unfortunately, was in the ICU when it was born. And their first year of parenthood has been hellacious, absolutely hellacious. Yeah. Her career has contracted significantly. She couldn't have planned on that. She never would have bet on that. But if you're asking her to prioritize, it's clear there is one priority, and it's that kid, period. Like, she would live with her parents if she needed to take care of that kid. But like you're saying, like, you need to do those check-ins, because that wasn't planned. There's no way she could have known that. It's just what has happened. And then I think too, 18 years from now, 20 years from now, like, there's no way it's going to be that intensive, like it's going to.
No. And it's also, it amazes me how many times as practitioners, we need to be reminded about our own health, right? We need our own healthcare team. We need to be reminded. I mean, I've got so many clients and I'll be asking them, how's your health? Like, it's been stressful. Okay. So, as a doc, what to do to bring your stress level down, but are you doing it? Right. And so checking in with yourself about like your capacity and your ability. There's so many practitioners that they get close, they start dealing with mental health issues or physical issues because they're working too hard. They're not taking care of their physical and emotional body. And that's not a recipe for longevity in practice either.
Yeah. That's funny. I don't know if you know John Morrison. He's loves Jane, and he helped build Clinic Sites. This is our website company.
Yeah.
Anyways, he told me this funny quote. He said, "Here, take my advice. I'm not going to use it." I thought that was so funny with healthcare providers. Like, yeah, remember, like, all those tips you give your patients, how about turning them around on yourself,
Again, that comes back to trust, right? If you really want, and I did a video for my practice recently because a really lovely gentleman said to me, he goes, "You must get annoyed when people don't follow your advice." And I'm like, well, sometimes. I said, but it's not I only take care of what I'm doing in here and I lead them the best as I can. I said, but when I think about it, the reasons that people don't follow any practitioner's advice, it's one, they don't trust or believe in the credibility of the person. So, that could be a chiropractor. It could be my trainer. I listen to my trainer's advice because I respect him. I know his knowledge and I get results. So when he tells me, go try this new supplement, I'm going to consider it because I believe him. So I think that's something to investigate, but also how we're showing up, right? If I'm going to give someone health advice, I better look like health myself. To me, again, these are values and things that are really important to me. I always want to stress that because not everyone is supposed to be like Dr. Melissa or Dr. Josh. We're supposed to be, our own people. But if you are in the business of healthcare, I think it's our responsibility to be taking care of our health as well. I think the other reason people don't follow advice is because they're simply not motivated, right? Or they're not giving themselves the permission. And then that's our role to kind of help encourage them and inspire them. But if you're not walking the walk, it's hard for people to really take you seriously. I know that I wouldn't. If my trainer was overweight, would I listen to him? Would I never have hired him, to be honest? Right? Because he's representing to me what I want, and he's carrying his personal brand. And this is a really tough one for docs to hear. So maybe it's a little bit of tough love, but you are your brand. You are what you're representing to your community. So if you're working with athletes, then what's your track record? Who are you as an athlete? Like, what are you presenting to them? Like, are you aligned with all of that? If you're with families and you want to be pediatrics, but you don't really have an office that is family friendly, or you're kind of
they get annoyed when kids are playing in the corner. Like,
then maybe it's not your jam. Like, ask yourself, like, is that really who you are? But you need to be connected and congruent. Otherwise, people can sniff it out, and that is not an attractive thing for people to be drawn to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, such great advice, Melissa. Last thing I just want to maybe explore is what are you thinking about over the next season of your career, the next 5 years of career? What are some things that you're thinking about these days that would surprise you if I met you 10 years ago and said, hey, here's the things you'll be thinking of? And that I'm partly asking that because I think the questions you're able to ask yourself comfortably now are way better different, refined from what you asked yourself 10 years ago, or even the start of your career, I'm sure.
Yes. What I am excited about, I'm looking forward to. I mean, I'm having been in practice 22 years. I love my practice, but I'm definitely always looking to keep expanding my ability to serve people and provide income to my life, which when I'm not in the practice, right? So traveling, being able to inspire people and impact people when I'm not here. So how do I do that better and more of it? So it is working with practitioners, but what's on my mind and my heart a lot lately is really creating a program or a community for my practice that they pay for that adds to their care. So I really think in Canada here, where I live, our healthcare system is very different than what you guys have in the States, but it's still something that is really, it's failing people dramatically. And, how can I add to that? I'm asking myself legacy questions. Here's a better answer for you. Because as I'm heading into the next still 20, 30 years of my career, I'm wanting to go, okay, what have I done and how do I do it better? But also what are the things I can build and leave so that if I'm not in practice or if something happens to me, I feel like there's a piece there. I know I have legacy because of the lives I've interacted with, but more tangible things. So, programs for moms with their babies, programs, online programs and things that are more tangible. That's kind of where my head is going a little bit more now because I still see big gaps. I think our healthcare system has gotten worse here. And people are starting to ask more questions and they're going to the States sometimes to get care because they're not getting it here.
That's funny because a lot of people here who can't afford the care they want go to Mexico. So it's like American doctors in Mexico. I guess everybody moves south. Nobody's going north for care.
Well, it's a different system. I mean, our system here in Canada, it's still a very reactive system, right? So it's not a health building system.
Yeah.
Even having said that, it can be the waiting times to get in to see your family physician are a lot. And truthfully, people aren't getting the results anymore. They're realizing do I really want to take a medication if I'm getting headaches or do I want to try to figure out what the cause of my headaches is? If inflammation, whatever it's going to be. So that's something that I've always been passionate about. And I don't have the capacity in clinic hours to always address it all. So I'm looking at building something to add to the practice that, people can jump on group calls and I mean, I've helped with so many people build online programs and I've done them myself for practitioners, but I'm like, why have I not done something for my practice and for the general population? Because that's definitely near and dear to my heart as well. So I'm asking myself how I can keep leaving a legacy. How can I help more? How can I tap into my interests and my skills now to keep myself engaged? Yeah.
Good for you. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's interesting because, I think early on in practice, I think everybody's so concerned with getting better at whatever you're doing, getting better at adjusting, getting better at diagnosis, getting better at muscle work, getting better at, nutrition, getting better at supplements. And then it's as a clinic owner, getting better at business and understanding finance and understanding HR and interviewing and hiring and dealing with people. And then you get to a point, and I'm starting to see this point, like my oldest son just entered high school and I'm like, man, it's kind of weird. We only have this is the start of the fourth, I'm not going to get any more time with him starting today.
You got it.
And it kind of is impacting me. I'm like, oh, I got to prepare for that because 4 years from now, there's going to be one less body in this house. So, but also as a career. So I think if I was a grandparent, I don't want to be tied down with I want to be able to travel and take the kids and, the grandkids and do stupid stuff that annoys my son. And he's like, hey, I want to go on that. Oh, too bad, huh? But I think that's something that I'm looking forward to as being rewarding, which is crazy because I never thought that far ahead at any point in my life. But now that's almost believable. It's not yet believable, but almost I can see it.
It goes fast. I mean, it's what the saying when you have a young family, the days are long and the years are fast, right?
Yeah, that's a great one.
It does go fast. And my youngest, he just turned 18. So he's looking at going away to school next year. And there's going to be, I have a lot of time here now that I didn't have when they were younger. So I think it's also important for docs to remember that life is long and practice can be long and there are actually no rules, right? You can build, there's practitioners who dive into research and thankfully they're doing research and they're not actually in clinical practice because they're giving us more knowledge. There's practitioners who end up, locuming and covering for other practices. There's some docs that are very, very much suited to be associates or independent contractors. They don't need to run a business. There's some docs that are great clinic directors and there's some docs that like to do a little bit of everything or have done a little bit of everything. And I think it starts with knowing who you are, what you want, and being open to evolving as your business and as you change through the years as well.
Wow.
Because there's no rules. You could do it. You could actually do it all at different times too. So
right. I love that you're bringing that up because, I think a lot of people do play scared, or they're convinced by, legalities or insurance companies that they can't do something. And when you really peel back the layers, your healthcare license allows you to diagnose and put hands on people.
Yeah.
And as long as your business is designed around that, you got a lot of leeway. Don't let anybody, decide what you can't do.
Yeah.
And if you look in the world of med spas, I mean, they're using the scope of practice as wide as possible. Oftentimes the owner doesn't even have a medical license, or is like a dental assistant or something. And they just hire somebody to do injections on certain days because that's what they need. And I'm like, I love that in some sense of going, yes, all I need to do that procedure is somebody who can inject, but all the other coverage can be done by somebody else. Yeah. And I think in chiropractic, we think all these things need to be done by the chiropractor. I'm like, nope.
You can really hone in on, and also you may have the skills and the knowledge, but again, is it your absolute skill set? Like one of the most interesting interviews I did in my current season of the podcast I have is I had someone, he's not a practitioner, but he's an executive coach, but he does a lot of strength finding assessments. The Clifton, name wrong. And so, I've done my
Strength finder. I've done it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what my skills are. I'm high in communication. I'm high in strategy. I'm high in ideation. I'm highly optimistic. And there's another connected one piece that I'm still not 100% sure about. But in any event, I'm not strong in analytics. So I get bored. Like, give me something to present to someone and I'll nail it. But give me all the data around it, and I just want to look at the Coles notes. Like, I know who I am with my skills and my strengths, which is, I know we talked about this earlier in our conversation, but it's really crucial, because if you know who you are, then you can build a team around you that is right for you. And if you're the kind of practitioner that is, again, like this, well, I need the right team to help me with the bookkeeping and the analytics, because I don't really love to do it. I need to keep an eye on it, but it's not my jam. So knowing who you are, and then it can really help you zone in on your strengths in a practice and what things you can delegate effectively.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, such great advice. Well, Melissa, if people want to continue a conversation with you, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I mean, if you go to drmelissalongo.com, it's kind of the one stop for everything that I do. There's my practice, but then there's the link to the stuff for healthcare professionals. We also have a boutique production company that I run now as well. So for people who want to do video work, if they're local, but otherwise audio work. So we help other people produce their podcasts and stuff now too. And help
That's awesome. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, my partner is a recording engineer. So when we connected, it was like, okay, I've got all this work on strategy and how to, and I've done so many podcasts for 7 years. He's got the how to of how to make it sound good. So, and that's something that we can, from people who we've just helped them build it. So they record remotely and we just clean it up and give them the structure to full scale, A to Z production. That's the next.
I don't know what it is, but there's something in the water up there in Canada, because my podcast producer is actually up in Canada. But further east, over in Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I mean, people are different. Podcasting is no small feat, so good for you. Thanks for the opportunity to chat today, but good for you for taking it on. It's not as easy and not as people might maybe think it is. It's not just the interviewing. It's all the behind the scenes, the artwork, the organization, the interviews, the editing, the show notes. There's a lot of other pieces that bring it all together. So, good for you for doing this for people. So thank you. But yeah, there's some people, I never wanted to produce anything. I just wanted to do the conversations and the branding. I don't want to actually do the production side. So I'm happy to hire people to do that too.
Oh yeah. That part is, I have no interest in that, like I hit stop on the recording and then somehow magically it appears on Apple Podcasts. And I'm like, I have no idea how that happened, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if anyone's listening and they want some help with that, that's the smallest piece of my business right now, but it's also really fun to help people design and build a show and have a personal connection with them. So yeah, but so drmelissalongo.com. I'm less on social media these days than I used to be, but I'm probably more engaged on Instagram. It's just Dr. Melissa Longo DC. But yeah, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Well, on behalf of Dr. Melissa Longo, this is Dr. Josh Snyder saying, go out there and build this practice of your dreams, man. And I guess have the trust in your intuition. That's what I picked up from today, Melissa.
It's a great way to wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Trust Driven Insights, brought to you by TrustDrivenCare. Imagine a world where all your patient communication is in one place, seamless, effortless, and on autopilot. That's the power of Trust-Driven Care. If you're ready to streamline your practice, check out TrustDrivenCare.com and see what's possible. Trust-Driven Insights. Real conversations. Smarter care. Stronger business.